Hi folks, welcome to the Irvine High School Scoresback webinar. My name is Alan Polito and I'm the Executive Director for the Princeton Review of Orange County and Inland Empire. And of course you guys can see my email address listed there on the first slide. Feel free if you have any questions after watching this video to reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And of course if you want to speak to one of our representatives, feel free to call 800-2REVIEW. And you can also ask to be connected to the local Irvine or Orange County office. Just a little public service announcement. If you guys are interested in any sort of college information from us and a 10% discount code that can be used for private tutoring, go ahead and text OCPREP, OCPrep, to 877-877. Let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, here's the agenda. There are 3 main bullet points for my presentation. I have some quick announcements for you guys. Then I'll discuss your scores. There are 2 different practice tests that were administered at your school. And of course, the SAT versus the ACT to kind of close things out. Here are the announcements. At the very top, you guys can see that for SAT testing dates, if you did not already know this, starting next year in 2017, they are going to add, College Board that is, will add an additional SAT testing date in the month of August. We at Princeton Review like this move because it's the first time that the College Board has planned to offer a summer official SAT testing date, and that's a good thing for many, if not most, students out there. In the past, as recently as this year, of course, after the June official test date, students had to wait until October to actually take the real thing. And if you imagine a student who is perhaps studying over the summertime, waiting between the month of June and October, I should say, is kind of a really long wait. And for any students who, for example, are athletes, such as football players, then it really interferes with a lot of the plans that they had, and there's no perfect segue from preparation to testing. So we like this move that they are actually adding the August test date. The second bullet point does say that for 2018, the year after, College Board will then effectively take away the January testing date, which historically has been the least popular testing date out of the ones that are offered every single year. What will remain is that brand new August official month. The second announcement that you guys may have not heard of before is related to the FAFSA, and that's for your financial aid, of course, the free application for financial aid. Starting with the 2017 to 2018 application, that will actually be available for processing and for you guys to start filling it out this fall, starting October 1st, 2016. Now, that's a significantly earlier date than what everybody is used to, especially if you've gone through this before, if you're a parent, because typically that would have been released in January 1st, 2017. If you are turning this in for this particular cycle, you will, of course, use your 2015 tax return, because there are still effectively 3 months left that you would not be able to report starting in October. There's a couple of reasons that they're doing this. Number one is for certainty. It's the fact that you know your 2015 tax return at this point, but likely not your 2016. If you think of the historical date that this is released on January 1st, even though that is, of course, technically the first day of a new year, most people are not processing their tax information the first week of January. So that's one of the reasons they did this. Another reason is for alignment. Basically, this aligns the financial aid process with the school year. It's a more natural feel and cycle to start thinking about everything on October 1st, as opposed to trying to sort of recover from New Year's Eve festivities and trying to fill out the application on January 1st. Okay, so these are some announcements, hopefully especially for those of you who had no idea that this was happening. This is the kind of information that Princeton Review likes to really share with its families. Okay, so let's talk about your test scores. And first of all, we're going to talk about the SAT, since first of all, more students in your school took this practice test version. I do have in parentheses the redesigned SAT scores there. Ultimately, moving forward, I will essentially have to just get rid of that redesign and just start calling it SAT because it already changed in March. There are 2 main sections on this exam. which we call verbal and math here. There's a longer name the College Board uses for verbal. It says like critical reasoning and writing, reading, so on and so forth. But for the sake of saving space, we just said verbal. For this example, this student received 510 on the verbal, of course, and 430 on the math. And if you add those two together on the right-hand side, is a total of 940. I put in red the minimum and maximum scores, so you can tell that for each of the verbal and the math sections, you have a minimum score of 200 points, and you have a maximum score of 800 points. If you add those margins together, then the total minimum score is 400 points to a maximum of 1,600 points. If you are a parent looking at this, and if the 1,600 and 800 numbers look and sound remotely familiar to you, that's probably because you might have had an older child who took this version of the test, or if you're a parent who took the SAT yourself, this was the scoring grid that you should have been judged under. So one of the cool new things, I guess you can say, about going back to a 1,600 scale is that if you're a parent who took that exam, and of course if you performed rather well, you can now once again start bragging about the score that you received. For example, if Dad took this version of the SAT as far as the scoring grid is concerned, and he got a 1520, he can now start telling the world once again he got a 1520, as opposed to what the recent maximum score was of 2,400. Okay? Now, one of the reasons we believe that they actually reverted to the old or the previous scale isn't to be nice to you guys. Really, what they're trying to do is cater to their number one customers, which are, of course, the colleges that you are applying to. Make no mistake, as the consumer, you guys have no real power over the SAT or ACT. It is effectively what the colleges themselves want, and so what they're dictating to College Board and the ACT organization. So the move to a familiar scale of 400 to 1,600 total is a smart one by College Board, because they then avoid having to force colleges and college admissions officers to relearn a whole bunch of things. And if there's one thing that a college admissions officer hates, it's change in the way that he or she needs to take a look at the applications. So with that in mind, it is of course natural for people to say, well, if it used to be out of 1,600, then we should just look at the average scores back then to determine what makes a good score now. Well, we just want to caution you that although the numbers themselves look aesthetically the same, we still aren't 100% sure what the percentiles are going to look like for this version of the exam. Frankly, the test writers themselves aren't quite sure yet. Our proof? If you took the PSAT in October of 2015, how long did it take for you to get your PSAT scores back? It was much more delayed, wasn't it? And then, if you were aware, the March SAT, which just occurred, the people who took those tests will not receive their official test scores until after the May SAT is actually administered. So that's like a couple months after the fact. What's going on? What's going on is that College Board has declared that they want to administer at least 2 official testing dates for the redesigned SAT, so that they can effectively calibrate the numbers and make sure that everything looks copacetic. Now, mind you, I gave you the layman's terms there. They're not going to say that's really why they're doing it, but frankly, that is why they're doing it. They don't want to stumble and release numbers that are either going to look too harsh or release numbers that are going to look too favorable. That's why they're doing it that way. In the middle part of your score report are a whole grouping of additional test scores. And of course, as you can see, I labeled this slide, these scores are not that important. And if you look at it from a college admissions perspective, colleges right now have said they're not really going to be looking at these scores. Frankly, they don't understand what these scores mean anyway. There is no historical context to these things, except what College Board has not released yet in terms of what's an average score, what's a bad score, or what's a good score. We gave to you in the different headlines there the ranges. For example, test scores is 10 to 40 points, sub-scores 1 to 15 points, and cross-test scores 10 to 40 points. I'll briefly explain these, but once again, let's all remember, these scores are not that important. They will not be turned into colleges, and so it doesn't really matter as much in the grand scheme of things. For the test scores, they break it down to math, reading, and writing, again from 10 to 40 points. And you can see how that's effectively exactly the breakdown of what the previous SAT was just like. So because they didn't really truly reinvent or create a brand new exam, you can still see remnants there of 3 sections, which is what the previous exam looked like. For the cross-test scores on the right, where it says analysis in history/social studies and analysis in science, what that's trying to tell you is that even though this redesigned SAT does not formally have history, social studies, or science sections, it does have a few of those question types that revolve around that topic or that subject. Therefore, it's trying to judge you on what is a non-official section. And finally, you have subscores, 1 to 15 points on the margin there. And you have phrases such as command of evidence, words in context, and an expression of ideas. What you'll notice is that these are subscores, once again, of the different kind of topics that are there or tested on the exam. And it's trying to give you more information about your progress for each subsection. Now, the observant person looking at these results and listening to this presentation might make the natural connection with Common Core, which does part of what Common Core attempts to do is to really track and quantify all the skill sets that every grade level and every student, I should say, is going through. And that is what this is trying to do. There is a closer marriage between this standardized test, this SAT, and the ACT to another extent, and Common Core as well. That's not by accident, guys. Both test writers understand that the phrase Common Core is the most popular one that's actually being discussed today, and therefore they are riding that proverbial wave. And so this is their attempt to really fall in line with the Common Core process. The last part of this breakdown for that score report is for you to use this legend to review your choices. Most of you, if not all of you, should have received your scores in black and white, and so the red and the green markings aren't going to be all that much helpful. But what you should be looking for as physical indicators are the check marks, a blank space, or a letter in the middle area. So this legend and your score report should be used together with your test booklet to review the mistakes or the blank answers that you might have left. So obviously, taking a look here from left to right, it's showing you, first of all, where you see the bubbled in number 1. That tells you the question number. So this first box is for question number 4. In the middle, there's a check mark, therefore the student got it correct. And on the right-hand side, it says B for boy. That is the correct answer, and of course, that is what the student put down. In the middle box, number 7 is the number of the question. There's a blank triangle in the middle, therefore this student left it blank. And there's a letter D, which is, of course, the correct answer. And finally, the third box, number 23, A is what the student incorrectly put down, and C happens to be the correct answer. So you should use this to actually take a look at all the different mistakes and blanks you might have left, and review that in conjunction with the test booklet, so that you can, of course, understand your mistakes. You need to review them, and you need to make adjustments moving forward. What I will remind you of for both SAT and ACT, guys, is that the tests do not penalize you for incorrect answers anymore. Therefore, it would be silly to leave any question blank on either test type. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know the correct answer, just guess and you'll be okay. And then finally here, the essay score, the essay which is optional. I believe pretty much every student did choose to take the essay score, or did choose to take the essay section. You can see that there are 3 main scores given to you on this essay. They're called reading, analysis, and writing. The range for each of this is minimum of 2 points to maximum 8 points each. And it also gives you some comments from the readers who scored your essays, and they've given it to you there, and it shows you your essay submissions on the following pages. Now, the essay score is not something that has been a significant player in college admissions. And many schools have admitted that they don't really pay attention to this part of the test, even though they might still require it. For example, the UCs. Really, only one or two of the UCs have ever admitted to even attempting to care about the essays. So I'm not telling you that so that you can blow off this part of the test. It just means it's not quite as important or not quite looked at the same value as your quantifiable numeric results. However, one of the things that they can do is they can pull your essays and your essay results and compare to what you put on the college application. So in situations in which the admissions reader might be wondering, this college essay application sounds a little bit too great compared to what I expect from this student and the transcript that she turned in. Let me take a look at an SAT or ACT writing score and see how those can compare. So that's one way they can use that as well. Okay, let's move on to the ACT in this particular case. And actually, this is the slide that I wanted to show you guys. So your ACT scores look like this. There are 4 different sections on the ACT, and they're called English, Math, Reading, and Science. Those are the 4 official ACT sections, and each of them is from a minimum of 1 point to a maximum of 36 points. So 25, 30, 28, 25, like it says there. The composite on the right-hand side represents the average of English, Math, Reading, and Science. Add those up, divide it by 4, you get a 27 out of a possible 36. Below that composite score, we put the percentile compared to 2014 college-bound seniors, and that's 87th percentile, which means this student would have performed better than 87% of his or her peers for that testing month. Now, if you're wondering why this has a percentile and the SAT did not, it's very simple. We have no percentile data, official percentile data, from the College Board. They released some PSAT percentile data, which you can't apply directly anyway, and frankly, as we predicted, the PSAT percentiles from October were greatly inflated because we anticipated that the College Board, the SAT test writers, would not want to scare away its customers. Hence, they were going to be friendlier there. You'll notice there are 3 other score sets here, ELA, STEM, and Writing. And so those are subsets once again. The ELA score is basically if you average out the English and the reading and the writing results as well. However, that is not going to be something that actually is going to be judged on your college application. It's still going to be about the 4 main sections as well as the composite score. Once again, as I explained on the previous slide, you have this legend so that you can review your choices and look for the check mark, blank space, or letter in the middle area to determine if you got it correct, you left it blank, or you got it incorrect. Remember, once again, on ACT and the SAT, you really should never leave an answer blank. If you're running out of time, just pick one letter and bubble it straight down. Okay? You'll pick up a couple of extra points that way. Over here, yes, there's also an optional essay for the ACT. It is also scored from 1 to 36, and so you can see the result there. And there are, once again, comments that the readers give to each of you. Please note that this essay scoring system is brand new from September 2015. This is the biggest thing that ACT changed on its test, in addition to the ELA and STEM writing score and STEM scores. Okay, so what we've noticed in September is that even the most successful students, the highest scoring composites, still do fairly poorly on this part of the test. I personally had a student get a 35 out of 36 composite in the last couple of months, and I believe, if I remember correctly, that student scored in the low 20s, maybe even a 19 or 20 on the essay score. So it's just kind of weird and funky, but of course that 35 out of 36, that's a darn good score. And if we're talking about SATs and ACTs, it's only natural to talk about comparing and contrasting the two. So all of you, because you took a practice test, have really taken that first step already. And what I mean by that is to answer the question of which test is right for you, really what you need to do is to use practice test results and less about guessing, and use numbers to say which test you might be better at. Since it might be more difficult for each of you to compare the redesigned SAT results to the current ACT results, feel free to contact us at Princeton Review. We can easily help you with that and give you advice as to which test to focus on. Undoubtedly, many of you will try to take both anyway, such is the case for Irvine High, which we, of course, are in central Orange County, which is a highly college-aggressive town. But if we can save you some time, money, energy, and effort, and we determine you are significantly better at one test versus the other, obviously we're going to advise you to go ahead and take one versus the other. If you're interested in possibly adding to that decision about choosing between the ACT or SAT, then feel free to go to princetonreview.com, and we have a quick quiz that'll take no more than 5 minutes, and it'll ask you a series of questions and then give you some advice at the end. Once again, don't forget, my number one advice is to still take practice tests, or if you have official results, you could use that as well, obviously, and you can compare mathematically which test is a better fit for you. As far as for Princeton Review, we are a household name when it comes to college admissions and test preparation. And of course, we want to help you get into your dream school. And high SAT, high ACT scores is just one part of that. We are certainly a company that is well known. We have been part of your neighborhood and your district for quite a long time. And it's not a coincidence that Irvine High School chooses us to administer this practice test and to offer you presentations like this one. We're very proud of that because obviously in Irvine alone, there is no shortage of test preparation companies, from the large ones like us to the smaller ones that are local. If you are going to consider doing any kind of preparation for these tests, please feel free to contact us. We'd love to tell you and show you how we are your best choice out there. We have a very specific philosophy about the way we do things. And it isn't necessarily about sticking you guys into 8-hour classes and torturing you to get better scores. We do have a slightly different philosophy from that, and we have the proven track record of success stories just like everybody else. If you guys need more help or have any questions, this is our contact information. If you want to reach me directly, feel free to contact me via email. I'd love to respond to you guys. And if you need any local help, we're right here in Irvine. Our main office is across the UC Irvine campus, and we'd love to speak with you. Thank you so much for listening to this webinar, and I hope you guys learned a couple of things. Bye-bye.